I was 2 hours away from walking down the aisle when I heard my fiancé say he cheated into a live mic in front of every single guest. Yeah, you heard that right. And no, this ain't some rerun of Love is Blind Toxic Edition. This was real. Mine. I'm Kendall Price. 32. Interior designer by trade, emotional demolition expert by trauma. I'd spent a year building this picture-perfect wedding at a vineyard in Napa. Everything was handcrafted, color-matched, floral foamed to death. But apparently, while I was picking peonies, my fiancé Troy was picking people to cheat with. Let me set the scene. It's rehearsal night. Warm air, string lights, sparkling rosé flowing like lies at a family reunion. I'm laughing, greeting guests, giving air kisses to distant cousins I hadn't seen since puberty. And then, static. From the PA system. Troy had just stepped away to chat with Grant, his best man. They were behind the tent, near the audio setup. What they didn't know? Troy's mic was still on, clipped neatly to his collar, broadcasting, and that's when it happened. Look, man, it meant nothing. Just a few times. Rachel was easy, you know? I mean, it's not like I'd ruin marrying Kendall over some side fling with a bridesmaid. Rachel, my bridesmaid. The tent went still. The air evaporated. Dana, my maid of honor, turned to me like she just heard a gunshot. And everyone started turning toward me like I was about to burst into interpretive rage dance. Now, pause real quick. Because apparently 92% of y'all listening to these stories still aren't subscribed. That's like showing up to a wedding, skipping the gift table, and still asking for a slice of the cake with the name on it. Don't do that. Go on. Tap that subscribe button. Keeps the lights on and the drama flowing. Back to the mess. I didn't scream. Didn't throw a wine glass. Didn't yank off my heels and lunge across the tables like it was WrestleMania, Vineyard Edition. I just stood there, frozen. Inside, though, every brick I'd ever laid in this relationship, gone. Dust. Dana leaned in, her voice like a slow match being lit. Kenny, say the word. I'll handle it. I swear to God I'll knock that mic off his smug little face. I didn't blink. No, not here. Not now. He wants a stage? I'll give him one. Tomorrow. Because in that moment, I realized I wasn't going to be the girl who cried in the bathroom stall. I was going to be the one who rewrote the whole damn script, with better lighting and a sharper pen. And the craziest part? Troy didn't even know we heard him. This man walked back into the tent laughing, patting Grant on the back, giving me this little wink like he'd just nailed a toast. And all I could think was, you really don't know the mic's still on, do you? That night I didn't sleep. I sat in the bridal suite, robe still on, staring at my wedding dress like it had personally betrayed me. The dress I cried over. The one I flew to New York to find. The one I said, "This is the one" about. Now it felt like a costume for a role I refused to play. But if Troy still wanted a wedding? Oh, honey, I was going to give him a wedding, just not the one he rehearsed. You'd think I'd be sobbing on the floor, right? You'd think I'd be tearing off my veil, mascara running, screaming into a pillow like some kind of heartbroken movie bride. But no, I didn't cry. Not that night. Not even when the door to the bridal cottage clicked shut and I was finally alone with my thoughts and the silk robe with Mrs. Whitaker embroidered on the back. I just sat there, still, silent, watching the moonlight hit the edge of my wedding dress hanging by the window. The same dress I'd flown to New York to find. The one I cried in when I said, "This is the one." Turns out I picked the wrong everything. There was a soft knock. It was Dana. Of course. She didn't even wait for me to say, "Come in." She just opened the door with a bottle of Prosecco under her arm and that look in her eyes, equal parts fury and, "I'll set something on fire if you want me to." She sat down across from me. Didn't say a word at first. Just popped the bottle, poured 2 glasses and slid one across the table. Then she spoke. "You okay?" I looked her dead in the eye and said, "Nope." She nodded like she expected that. "You want to call it off? I'll handle the venue, The guests, the drama. I'll even slap Rachel if it helps. Just say the word. I let out a laugh. Dry. Bitter. Half sane. I don't want to cancel, Dana. What? I want to rewrite the damn script. She tilted her head. Kendall, this isn't one of your house flips. This is your wedding. Exactly. So I'm flipping it. I didn't sleep much that night. While Troy was probably snoring in the groom's suite thinking everything was locked in, I was crafting a plan in silence. And the strangest part? I felt calm. Like the second I heard his voice on that mic, some part of me snapped awake. Like my heart knew long before my ears did. I thought about all the times I'd made excuses for him being late, for him working late on Friday nights, for the weird tension between him and Rachel during dress fittings. I thought about how Grant, the best man, used to look at me like he was holding back something huge. Suddenly, all the puzzle pieces didn't just fit. They slapped me in the face. At sunrise, Dana stood in the doorway brushing her teeth. So what's the play, bride boss? I turned toward the window, watching the first rays hit the edge of my dress. Simple, I said. He thinks he's getting a perfect wedding, but I'm giving him the plot twist of the decade. It's funny how betrayal sharpens your memory. You start replaying scenes that never meant anything before, until now. The looks that lingered too long. The moments that made your gut whisper, wait, what was that? And for me, all those memories pointed to Grant, Troy's best man, the quiet one, the one who never quite fit into the fairy tale we were selling. What nobody knew, not even Dana, was that Grant and I had a thing once, before Troy, before the Pinterest boards and the wine tastings. Back when love felt more like a question than a contract. We met at a mutual friend's engagement party. Assigned seats, candlelight, a half-empty bottle of red between us. He made a joke about how the flower arrangements looked like funeral centerpieces, and I snorted wine through my nose. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't loud. It was the kind of connection that hums so quietly, you don't even realize you're tuning into it. We stayed outside long after the music died. He walked me to my car, and I remember asking, is it weird that I don't want this night to end? He looked at me. Soft. Steady, but sad. You deserve someone who'd never let it end. Then he walked away. 3 weeks later, Troy came in hot. Flowers, confidence, that kind of love that looks good in pictures. I chose him. And Grant? He became the best man, the ghost in all our group photos. But now that Ghost was standing under the same vineyard archway as me, watching my dream wedding rot from the inside. The morning of the wedding, I found him outside. He was staring out at the vines like they held all the answers. Tie undone, sleeves rolled up, shoulders tense like they'd been carrying something too long. I stepped beside him. Did you sleep? I asked. He glanced over. Barely. You? Same. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was loaded. Then he asked, you still going through with it? I nodded once. I have to. He ran a hand through his hair like he wanted to say something but didn't know where to start. So I helped him out. You heard him last night, didn't you? The mic. His jaw tightened. Yeah. And you didn't tell me? Now he looked at me. Really looked at me. Eyes dark and tired. I wanted to. But you looked happy, Kendall. I've never been able to ruin that. Not even back then. And there it was. Back then. Quick sidebar, folks. Ever notice how life loves reruns? Like you miss one red flag, and suddenly you're 6 episodes deep into Deja Vu. Emotional Sabotage Edition. That's why you hit that subscribe button. Because around here, the only thing more consistent than betrayal is the plot twist that comes next. Back to the wreckage. That night that almost was came rushing back. I stared at Grant. Why didn't you try? Why'd you let Troy have me? He swallowed hard. Because I thought maybe he'd give you what I couldn't. But I was wrong. So wrong. He stepped forward slowly like the ground might break under him. It should have been me. There it was. No background music, no slow-motion camera pan. Just truth. Raw and a decade too late. And for a second, the vines stopped swaying. The noise of the wedding staff disappeared. And I was just a girl again, standing next to the man who almost had her, and finally said what she needed to hear. I didn't kiss him. He didn't kiss me. But something passed between us. A quiet collision of what could have been, and what still might be. Because as much as this wedding was built on a lie, there was one thing in this story that was still real. Him. They say you should marry your best friend. And the sad part? I thought I was. But standing there in that vineyard, watching Grant stare at the ground like it might swallow him whole, I realized something. I never married my best friend. I walked away from him. After Grant said it, it should have been me. There was this long, aching silence between us. He wouldn't look at me. His shoulders were hunched like he'd been carrying years of guilt in his chest. I could almost hear it cracking. So I asked him, "Why now?" He blinked. "What? Why tell me now?" After all this time, Grant let out a breath that sounded like it hurt to breathe, because he doesn't deserve you. And I can't keep pretending I don't care. I didn't say anything. I just looked at him. Really looked. This was the man who always showed up quietly, helped me move out of my first apartment, fixed my flat tire when Troy didn't answer, sent me playlists when I had insomnia, always in the background, never asking for anything, never crossing a line. Until now. He finally met my eyes. I know I missed my chance. I know you're getting married in 6 hours. But if I don't say this now, I'll regret it forever. He stepped closer. I love you, Kendall. I always have. There it was. Not shouted. Not dramatic. Just spoken like a confession buried too long. I should have felt overwhelmed. Or confused. Or angry. But all I felt was still. Like a storm had finally passed. And now I could breathe. I didn't say, "I love you" back. Not then. Instead, I looked out over the rows of vines and whispered, "You told me once that I deserved someone who'd never let the night end." He smiled, soft and sad. "I meant it. Then don't let this one end either." We stood there in silence, the morning sun warming our faces, both of us knowing this moment was the start of something, but also the end of something else. Because I still had a wedding to walk into. But now, I wasn't walking in blind. I was walking in ready. I've never seen 120 people more excited to watch a woman walk straight into a lie. The vineyard was glowing. The chairs were lined up in perfect symmetry. The air smelled like roses, tension, and expensive wine nobody was really tasting. The string quartet was playing something delicate, one of those songs designed to cue tears on cue. And I was floating. Not with joy, not with nerves, just numb and deadly calm. I stepped into the aisle, wearing the dress, holding the bouquet, smiling like I hadn't just heard my fiancé tell the best man he'd cheated. With Rachel, my bridesmaid, multiple times, my mom was dabbing her eyes like it was the end of a Hallmark movie. Rachel, gone, vanished, no bridesmaid dress, no fake apology, just an empty space and an even emptier text thread. But Troy? Troy stood tall at the altar, grinning like the groom in a cologne commercial, still clueless, still cocky, still thinking this day belonged to him. I reached him. He leaned in and whispered, "You look beautiful." I smiled and whispered back, "You look nervous." He chuckled. The officiant welcomed everyone, spoke of love, partnership, forever. I stood there gripping my bouquet like it was a shield, like it might keep my hands from slapping someone if they said the wrong thing. Then came the moment. "Do you, Kendall Price? Take this man, Troy Whitaker." I raised my hand, and the crowd gasped. Now, before I nuke this man's ego in front of everyone he's ever known, let's pause for a quick reality check. Apparently, most of y'all still ain't subscribed. That's like showing up to a wedding, skipping the gift table, and still asking for a to-go plate. Come on now, hit that subscribe button. Keeps the vows real and the betrayals messy. All right. Back to the altar. The officiant blinked. Troy laughed awkwardly. "Kendall, what are you doing?" I turned to face the guests. Voice steady, smile still intact. Before I answer that, I've got a little story for y'all. About microphones and mistakes. You could hear every chair shift, every breath hold. See, last night, our dear Troy had a conversation with his best man, right behind the tent. What he didn't know, his mic was still on. Troy's face turned white. And what did we all hear, friends? Oh, just the groom-to-be saying how he hooked up with my bridesmaid. More than once. But don't worry. It meant nothing. Dana looked like she was watching the Super Bowl, and I'd just thrown a game-winning Hail Mary. Kendall, let's talk about this later. Talk? Like the way you talked to Grant behind my back? Or to Rachel behind my back? And hers? The audience was dead silent, except for someone in the back who muttered, "Damn." So no, Troy. I will not be saying I do. I turned and locked eyes with Grant, still seated in the front row, still stunned, still silently watching everything fall apart, or maybe fall into place. I walked toward him. If I'm going to marry anyone today, it's going to be the man who's always told me the truth. Even when it hurt. Even when he thought he'd already lost me. I held out my hand. You've always been the one. People lost it. One woman screamed. Someone's champagne glass shattered. My dad's jaw hit the program in his lap. And Troy? He looked like someone had unplugged him mid-software update. Grant stood up, slowly, took my hand, kissed it. Always was you, Kendall. The officiant? He just blinked, then lowered his script like it had burst into flames. No, we didn't legally get married that day, but we left, together. Me in my wedding dress, him in his suit, hand in hand. Troy stood there alone, surrounded by the wreckage of his own doing. And that dress? It wasn't a costume anymore. It was armor. I've seen dramatic exits in movies. Brides running in heels, mascara trails, guests screaming. But nothing, not one single rom-com, could touch what happened after I said Grant's name. People didn't just gasp. They stopped breathing. I left the altar with Grant's hand in mine, and silence echoing behind us. Troy just stood there, frozen, mouth half open like he'd short-circuited. His mom clutched her pearls. Literally. I'm not even being poetic. And Dana? She had her phone out, already typing like she was sending an SOS to the group chat. The string quartet. They didn't know what to do, so one of them just nervously played the Game of Thrones theme. I wish I was joking. Outside the chapel tent, the air hit me like a slap. Crisp and clean, like freedom. I turned to Grant. Did I just ruin your friendship? He let out this small laugh. Troy and I haven't been friends in years. Not really. Why didn't you say anything? Because you were in love with him, and I thought, maybe that'd be enough for you. It wasn't. We stood in silence again. This time it felt different. Not heavy. Not awkward. Just real. Inside, I heard the chaos starting. Someone yelled, "Where's Rachel?" Another guest shouted, "Well, I'm still eating the cake either way." Dana came flying out of the tent like a hurricane in heels. Girl, what the hell just happened? We left him. No, Kendall, you dropped a nuke on a vineyard in front of 120 people and God. She was laughing and crying and hugging me so hard I almost dropped the bouquet. You know you're a legend now, right? I don't care about being a legend. Then what do you care about? I turned to look at Grant. I care about choosing myself, finally. Later that night, while most of the guests had either scattered or spiraled into wine-soaked group therapy, I found a quiet spot near the fire pit. Grant sat beside me. No suits, no pressure, just a blanket and silence. "What happens now?" he asked. "I don't know," I said, "but for the first time in years, I'm not afraid to find out. It's been 8 months. The dress is boxed. The vineyard's been booked by another couple. Troy? He sent one email. Just one line. I don't know if I hate you or if I'm still in love with you. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because what I've learned since that day, peace is louder than revenge. Grant and I live in a little loft now. Nothing fancy. No wine cellars, no catered brunches, Just two people, finally in the right place, at the right time. No rings, no announcements, no pressure, just love that shows up quietly, every single day. He cooks. I make playlists. We still laugh about that wedding, especially the part where someone's aunt yelled, "I knew that boy was trash." One night, we're curled up on the couch watching some awful Netflix wedding show, and Grant turns to me. "You really left that man at the altar." I smirk. "Nah, I just gave the mic to the right one." He grins, kisses my hand, doesn't say anything. He doesn't have to. Because this is the kind of love that doesn't need a ceremony. It just needs truth and someone willing to stay, even after the music stops. So, what would you have done? Would you have walked out quietly? Or flipped the script like I did? Have you ever had to choose yourself, publicly, painfully, and with no promise of a happy ending? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your story, because maybe someone else out there is holding their breath, waiting for permission to walk away with their head high. Until next time, protect your peace, check the mic, and don't ever ignore your gut.